Let's see. There you are. Welcome to the Gateway, broadcasting live from the Bluffs of the Rockies. We are live on United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM. I'm your host this evening, C.L. Thomas. You've been listening to Sean Kelly with Into the Night here on United Public Radio Network 107. He also comes on again on Sunday nights at, I think it's 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Tonight on the Gateway, we're going back into one of the darkest chapters of recent history to examine the Satanic Panic. And my good friend, Tim Shaw, is going to join me with the Black Cat Lounge. And he's been talking a lot about the Satanic Panic. So I thought maybe, it would be a good idea to get him on here and see what he's found. Maybe we'll talk about a few cases that's fueled it and how lives were changed by it, and some of the lessons that it still may have for us today. There are moments in history when fear becomes something more powerful than facts, and when rumors become headlines and headlines become investigations, and then suddenly an entire society believes that something sinister is hiding just beneath the surface. Welcome to my childhood of the 80s. I'm a classic 80s kid. I was 5 when E.T. first came out. It was the first movie I've ever seen. I actually cried in the theater. It was too scary for me. Halloween was my favorite time of year, with the original plastic orange pumpkins and vinyl trash bag costumes that we all bought from Hill's department store, and some of us to local drugstore. They still did that thing back then. And we would do parades around the block and things like that. It was very magical, but then there was an underlying fear of razors and apples. And of course, there was the milk carton kids. Everyone presumed that these kidnapped kids were kidnapped by devil worshippers and things. And indeed, there was a lot of kids that went missing during that era for some reason. There was even a kid that I knew from my hometown that was abducted when I was in the first grade. So that's a whole story in its own. But in the 1980s and early 1990s, America became kind of consumed by one of the most disturbing morale panics of the modern era, the Satanic Panic. Parents were warned about secret cults operating in their communities. There was daycare workers that were accused of horrific crimes. Children were questioned about alleged rituals. Rock music, of course, was frowned upon. I remember going to, it was one of those concerts. Who was it? It was Marilyn Manson. And there was a big church group who was protesting his concert and saying that it was satanic and things. Because you got to remember, we had the Jesus movement come out of this whole Satanic Panic. So that got them all riled up. Dungeons and Dragons were a thing, which gets blamed for a lot of Satanic Panic beginnings. Ouija boards and ordinary symbols became potential evidence of something dark. It's kind of interesting. So how did we get here? Or how did we get there? Were there really organized satanic cults operating across America? There was one. It was the Satanic Church, but they really didn't have anything to do with Satan. So I don't know. Perhaps the most important question is, what happens when we become so convinced that an evil exists that we begin interpreting everything around us as proof of it? So a lot of that spills over into the paranormal right now too, with all of the demonic explosions happening. Everyone's a demonologist. Every case is demonic, and there's so many TV shows that promote the demon thing. I don't know. Joining me is a dear friend and host of the Black Cat Lounge, Timothy Shaw. Hold on a second. I can't see him. Here he is. Hey, Timothy, how are you?
Timothy, you're scaring me. Wait a minute. Whenever I hear Timothy, I know I
have that in the bio.
How are you? Thank you for having me on tonight.
Thank you for coming on such short notice.
No problem at all. No problem at all. It's always fun. And I always, I always enjoy coming on because we have such great conversations off air.
Yeah, we do.
And through Messenger. I always love that. You know what? One of the highlights of my day is I'll send you a message on Messenger, and then I'll get like all these little audio tracks Messenger, like 6 of them, where I start laughing. I go, "Ooh, this is going to be a good one." Okay, let's this one. Where is
You
this?
never know what I'm going to say either.
I know. It's like, oh, well, this could be, well, no, I know. If it's only 3, it's good. If it's 6 or more, I know it's going to be something that's going to be a little controversial.
Yeah, a lot of it's, dealing with the crazy paranormal field right now.
Off air, we were just talking about that, and there's a little sidetrack. It's something that I've seen repeat itself. About 25 years ago, there was a era of really bad feelings
Hmm.
and one-upmanship and some jealousies and stuff. And it seems as if it's starting again. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it has to do with the fact that people are fighting over, different, buying different locations and who's buying what and what's going on, and everything's divided down the middle. And there's a real easy way of solving it all. Just ignore it. It's really, that's what I do, and everybody goes, well, it's not the right thing to do. No, it is the right thing to do, because
Yeah.
really, if everybody stayed in their own lane, because I mean, I've been on reality TV. I think I've made $1,000 over 13 shows or 15 shows I've been on. You know, it's not putting food on your table. It's not, really making that big of a deal in your life. Just go and just ignore it. Stay in your own lane. Do what you like to do. Hang out with the people that you like to hang out with, and just tap dance off. That's how you. It's so simple to me. It's simple, and that's what I do now.
Yeah.
Everybody's going, what do you think about? I don't think much about it. I think nothing.
I think some people need to get jobs. I think, the bottom line is people aren't making money in it anymore. And
I agree.
they're scrambling over scraps. You've said it.
It's what, it's a shame, and it's a shame. And now, what, it was great. Now I'm going to be one of the very first people to come out and say I loved being invited to the big show. I mean, it was great. I never thought a guy like me would ever get a chance to do something like that. It was great. And I've met great people. Dustin Perry is a great person. Brian Kano, Johnny Zaffis, who is like my slightly older brother, because he is 3 months older than me. Andrea Parent. I mean, I was able to go and I met some really beautiful people. And then there's some people out there that were, sketchy. It's like a church bowling league. It's just the way it is. And you just go and you try to go and you try to be kind and you try to do the right thing and you try to attract the right people to you. And so far, I'm knocking on wood, because why? Because one day, some little girl off the West Coast, I think I read a book or something by her, and all of a sudden now we're friends, at least over Messenger. So I can't complain. At least I met somebody really nice through it.
You do. I met a lot of great people in the paranormal, but
It's true.
there's just
and a lot of people liken it to the state. I think I just did a sidestep on that. I think that a lot of people liken this to like the 80s and 90s. I think a lot of people liken that whole mind, that whole frame of mind where people are so right or wrong, and people are suspicious of everybody. And
right.
and listen, I'm slightly older than you, just slightly. I'm trying to reverse my age, but it's not working. But I think to myself, having grown up remembering the Vietnam War as much as I did, remembering that whole uh, the whole idea of where society, at least American society, was looking at it as all these long-haired, creepy kids. Really, I mean, it was shocking, and it was an affront to established ways. And I believe a lot of that's happening again, and we start seeing it again and again and again through every generation. Now, is it good? I think it is, because it forces change. and
Yeah.
change makes us think.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is so important about it. It brings different ideas to the forefront. However, we do have some focuses that really it's my way or the highway type of idea, and that's where the satanic panic really started to get a little tough, and especially like with me, having had heavy influence in spiritualism, having had relatives that lived in Lilydale, going down to Lilydale, being during my grammar school years, going to a nice parochial school during the school year where I went to church every day, just about. And then during the summer, going and heading with the spiritualist churches and seeing the protests that were going on there, these different groups outside of the gate of Lilydale, protesting that the spiritualists were devil worshippers. And I always remember that stuff. And it's funny because for years I kind of put it in my back pocket. Of course, I survived. I'm a disco survivor, so I had other things that I was kind of focusing on. But I would say in the last probably the last 2 years, I've really started to go, and I started drawing parallels between what I saw as a kid during the 70s, and then growing up, and then into the 80s, through the 90s, through the Reagan era and all that. And what's going on now, it is very, very similar. And it's very scary. It's very, very scary.
How so?
Well, I think it's because of the fact of we for years we prided ourselves as a society on being, how can I describe this properly, of being enlightened,
Mm-hmm.
where we were, our minority communities were, I won't say taken care of, but they weren't radicalized. They weren't they didn't become targets like kind of what's going on now. But we also thought, well, you know what, all our gay and lesbian communities out there, we thought that they were equals, and the trans communities, everybody was equal, everybody's equal. And there was always an undertone that they weren't. Native Americans, the African Americans, it was always this undertow. And when I think about that undertow, again, through the spiritualist community, growing up within the spiritualist community, I was always exposed to all these subcultures, which
Mm-hmm.
I thought was amazing. And I think it's really,
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like opened my eyes, into the way I look at people.
Now, there
And
was a Native American who, there at Lilydale, wasn't there? Was he there when you?
which,
Was
because there was a couple teachers there
I
back
don't
in
know.
the day.
He had a house there. There's a house sitting there on that property that there's a plaque.
Oh,
Right
that's up by the that's by the path that goes down to the carriage houses, and it goes down towards the pet cemetery and
the stump.
the stump, right?
Yeah.
That, I'm trying to remember whose house that was. Yeah, that was. But you got to remember, the spiritualists back then always believed in spirit guides, and most spiritualist mediums had Native American guides. And so that was very, very common. And I think that's probably what you're referencing, because I remember there was a Native American that did, I think they owned the house that was right there. The house, it's because that's still there now. That house is still there. So, yeah, but they had a big influence. But we look at these things now, and I looked at what happened with the woke movement, and that reminds me a lot of the 70s and the 60s. And then I see how the pendulum swung back, and how it became so it's become so, I guess, downtrodden. It's become so strict. And I saw that back in the 80s and early 90s when the panic started, and everybody was just, I remember friends' parents. Now I'm trying to think, I was probably 18 during that time period, between 18 and my early 20s. And I remember people's parents going and saying, I don't know what they're teaching these kids in college. They're playing some crazy game where they, yeah. I mean, it was like Dungeons and Dragons with, you know what? It's like, I hate that because I've got 80 some Ouija boards on the other side of this camera.
I got quite a bit too.
And it's like, people were like equating it now because, right now Ouijas are, I think they've lessened a little bit, but in the last couple of years they were kind of evil again. And
I don't know. There's a lot of celebrities that are out there even saying that they're evil.
You know what?
So even the media split over it.
Here's the thing. Use your cell phone as a recorder to record EVPs. It's the exact same thing as a Ouija board, guys. Exact same thing. It's just different tech. It's just a different device for the exact same purpose.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people we're starting to get that repression again. We're starting to see and I don't want to put down any kind of Christian or any kind of Christian religion, because all religions are viable. It's all your belief system. I mean, but I think when the religions become dictatorial, where they want to become overpowering, they want to be oppressive, to the demons and all this and the Satanists, and they want to control the minds and hearts of the populace. They want to be the ones that are going to be your moral compass. That's where the problem is coming in. And I've been seeing that over and over again. And again, that's starting to, I've been seeing history repeat itself over and over and over again. And that's what's scary to me as someone who hangs out with, again, being a spiritualist, I am all over the place. Some of the crazy people. I mean, I hang out with pagans, and I knew the late Raymond Bucklet, the guy that brought a lot of the rituals of the Wiccan religion here. Santeria and voodoo practitioners and hoodoo people. I get a chance to go and really work. And Satanists, my publisher is a Satanist. Our publisher is a Satanist. What are we talking about, Eric?
But is he a member of the Satanic Church, or is he like a real? Because there's a difference.
Well, he's a member.
I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about that.
I believe he was a member. He was a member of the Satanic Church, and I believe he had I think he was in PR. I think he did he did media for them for a while. But I mean, you have to be able to go.
That's not like a real Satanist, though. I'll tell you right now that they're not really.
You know what? I believe there's a difference between demon worshipers and Satanists. And Satanists are, I think the two are kind of like confused. People have well, what the hell? People think I'm a Satanist. Well, I'm not going to lie about it. People don't really take the time to understand it. I mean, like the Satanic religion has its own dogma. It's got its own structure. Where independent demonic worshipers and that's a little bit different. That can be a little more edgy, I believe, but still, no harm to others. And I feel that there's too many people out there right now, just like it was in the 80s and 90s, that are trying to go and dictate the mores of the country. And that's what's wrong. That's what's wrong. Mm-hmm. And the problem is that most of the people that dictate often are hiding stuff.
Yeah.
Where a lot of let's go back and go into the burned over district of New York State during the Erie Canal era, when they were all fighting over, all these religions were trying to go and get some kind of footholds there. You had the Shakers, Quakers, you had the Oneida free love community, you had the Mormon community, spiritualists, everybody was out there trying to get their little pound of flesh, and everybody was right, and everybody wanted to go and rule, be the cock of the walk. That's where a lot of the problem comes in, where it's domination over the masses, and it becomes the point where nobody is taking the time to go and really learn from each other and cooperate from each other. And such as in the Satanic Panic, you have the biggest problem is they're looking for witchcraft everywhere. They're looking for the demon and Satan everywhere. And you mentioned Marilyn Manson. Listen, I remember them talking about Elvis Presley doing, being bad for the morals of people, in general, and all that demon bop. That was a big thing that they called it back, like when I was kid in the 60s, demon bop, and then becomes classic. And now everybody plays it. Elvis Presley has songs that they're playing in church services. So I mean, it's all through the individual eyes. And I think that's the problem. And I mean, it got to the point where I believe that people really started to go and look for demons and everything demonic everywhere, too far. And it also became a capitalistic thing, because at every checkout in every supermarket, you had the National Enquirer. And what was in the National Enquirer? You had demons, you had the Warrens, you had ghosts, you had all this stuff going on. Oh yeah. I mean,
I remember though, in the 80s though, the thing that made that so profound in that era was it seemed like the right wing seemed to come up with a solution to the problem, right, at every turn. So, and what I mean by that, okay, there was the AIDS movement, the first AIDS case that happened with Ryan White, the kid.
Oh my God, yes, yes.
All of a sudden, that whole community, the lesbian, gay community, was the prime targets for that. Do you remember that? And then they had to
remember it all too well. And AIDS, HIV and AIDS was the punishment of God.
Right.
For being of that gender. And to me, that was just one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. But every one of these religions and every one of these factions needs a scapegoat. Scapegoats allow people to centralize their hate, and it be able, now once that hate is shared, it becomes a movement. That's where the biggest problem comes in. And
but they had they started like to acquire the fire camps. Remember that, where the kids were going to be empowered and to be cured of on pure thoughts. Do you remember that?
Yeah. What do you mean they still have them? They still have these camps. They still do.
The music, remember, you had they were protesting all the music. Rock and roll was bad for
Tipper Gore. Tipper Gore was the vice president's wife, was out there in front of the congressional committees, going out there saying, we've got to be able to go and warn people that we believe that this is obscene. But wait a minute, why are you my watchdog? Why are you my conscience? And that's the problem. And that's what you start seeing. And whatever happens, we talked a little bit about the pendulum swaying back and forth. That's what happens. It pushes so far. And during the Reagan administration, the Reagan years, the right became very strong. And it became so oppressive against people, being able to have freedom of expressions, freedom of craft, freedom of art, and music is art. And you're too young to remember this, but I remember when the Beatles, they were out there and they were playing Beatle records backwards.
I remember that actually.
And not just Beatle records, but other records, and Hail Satan and all that, and then of course, I mean, all you have to do is throw some deranged people in there, such as Ramirez, the Night Stalker, the guy that had the pentagram tattooed on his, and that hung out at the Hotel Cecil in Skid Row in Los Angeles. I mean, you have people like that there. And you mentioned about the child care. It's still occurring now. But back then it was always satanic. And I think the pinnacle started when the book, and I remember reading, oh my God, I'm not going to show my age, but I remember what's it? Michelle. I think it's called Michelle Remembers.
Michelle Remembers, yes.
And it was horrific. It was, I remember reading it going, this is horrific. I remember saving money to buy this stupid hardcover book and was just appalled at it. Just appalled. And, and locally, there were desecrations of cemeteries here in Western New York where people would go out there and were desecrating children's graves because they believed that the skull of a child would possess power, and if they drank out of the cranium, that they would absorb all this power or whatever. And they did that. And I mean, I think a lot of people became influenced over it, and then it became a fad. And I think it became a fad, and that's the sad part, is when things become a fad because of the fact that they're being oppressed, and you get these disenfranchised kids, and not just kids but adults, and it's pushing in that direction. And I do have a problem. And it became more and more evident. And Michelle, I think the terrible part about Michelle Remembers is that we didn't really understand hypnosis as well as we do now. And apparently the person who was guiding the client during these sessions were inserting different scenes, suggesting different scenes. And she was remembering them as he talked. This type of hypnosis now has been, oh my God, has been, it's not regulated, and it's not used by the American, I think the Psychiatric Association.
Yeah,
I believe that's what it is. And then what I loved, and then unfortunately years later, somebody went and did a deep dive on Michelle. Well, first of all, they found out that the psychologist or psychiatrist divorced his wife and then married Michelle. Then they did a deep dive on her life, and they found that half of the stuff that almost all the stuff that this horrific stuff, especially like that, I think it was like I forget how many day ritual, let's say a 5-day ritual that she as a small child witnessed in this cemetery. But when they went to look at the cemetery is surrounded on 3 sides by urban streets. And believe me, if there was a 5-day, let's say a 5 to 10 day ritual in one area of like a cemetery like that, don't you think somebody would have noticed? And I mean, these are things. And they talked about her injuries. They talked about her abuse. They talked about, the length of time out of school. And then when they went and they checked her records, there was absolutely no, there was no mention of any kind of abuse, no mention of injuries, and no mention of absenteeism during that time period. So we look at it, and these are all false memories that were implanted. And we see this impetus of lies. And whether or not it was done consciously or unconsciously, for a good reason, for a bad reason, it doesn't matter in that fact. The fact is that because of that, it started to damage other people's lives along the way. And there was this backlash. Again, like in Lilydale, I remember, and Lilydale is probably one of them, Lilydale is just a bunch of spiritualists that hang out, and they, they have their religion, and they really don't, spiritualism is not a religion of conversion. It's a religion of conviction. So we don't, spiritualists don't go out there like, just like we don't go to the, and stand in front of a building or in a street corner with signs. You kind of feel that you need something of this nature. You kind of hear about it, whatever. And that's how you become a spiritualist, or it's brought in the family. And I remember as a kid seeing these different church groups that were being bussed in and doing and protesting in front of the gates of Lilydale as a kid. And I never quite understood it, but it was during that time period where everybody was like, this is pure demon worship. Also, around the same time, I vaguely remember, we're going back a little bit. There was a doc that was made about Lily Dale, and I didn't really like it. It wasn't really, I wish I could remember. The town where people don't die or something like that. And
I,
there was
I saw this documentary. It's still on YouTube.
and there was one woman. Now I met the gentleman who had lost a son. He was just a very beautiful person. But they had this woman that stood up on top of Inspiration Stump. And for you that don't know what Inspiration Stump is, it's a concrete stump, and people used to go and stand on it, and they would do inspired speaking, and which is like preaching, and bring messages, psychic and mediumistic messages to a group. She stood up there and she reconsecrated it for Jesus Christ. And I thought to myself at that point, what would happen if I went and stood on a church step and said, I'm consecrating this for, the universal spirit or something, and it's like, that's a cringe moment, but people don't see it. And I think unfortunately, some of these values that espouse common sense and freedom become, I guess people are afraid of that. And we live in a society now, and we've talked about this before.
They're afraid of stuff they don't understand.
Well, it's not only just that. People don't want to go and take responsibility for their lives. So they want to be pablum fed. And I know so many people that are so pablum fed that, I think one of the best people I ever worked with was a Pentecostal Christian. I loved this guy. I loved working with him, and I loved sharing a truck. I used to do a lot of blue collar work, and we would be in there, and I could get him to talk about the Bible and everything, and I thought it was fascinating. But one day he said his pastor got up there and started talking about how witches are demon worshipers. And I mean, it was gobbledygook. Again, this is during the early 80s. And I said to him, no, there's a difference. And he would not hear of it. He was like, where I was like very open to, listening to what he was talking about in the Bible and the stories and gospels and that sort of thing. He would not go and listen to it because his pastor told him, thus his pastor becomes omnipotent, thus his pastor becomes next to God. Mm-hmm. And that's where I really kind of opened my eyes a little bit and thought, well, this is where things get a little shaky, unfortunately. It really does. And it's fear. And we talked about earlier, it's control, it's fear. And I just have a problem that we're going back into the satanic panic again. Where people are criticizing movies, criticizing actors for whatever, criticizing the music that we listen to, criticizing the written word, which is scary. That's scary to me. And then, it actually even goes right up into, we're not talking politics tonight, but all I'm going to say is things trickle down. There is a trickle down effect. And I believe that meanness that's trickling down is really part of what is really bringing forth that oppression that we're getting now. And I think we're getting more people that are suffering from depression because of environmental things of that nature. The whole atmosphere in which we live, which I remember people back in the 80s and early 90s going through that. It was very oppressive. And I'm sure you remember, you were probably a teenager at the time, but it was, remember when gay marriages were like,
that was a huge deal. Yeah,
it was crazy. And I remember I'm a big talk radio guy. Now I'm a podcast guy. I love listening to podcasts. But back then it was a podcast. I used to love listening to talk radio. And I remember people going up there saying, that's Satan. That is Satan. Satan is sneaking into everybody's lives now just by doing that. And I thought to myself, that's crazy, because these are just two people that love each other. Again, I was brought up in the spiritualist religion community where I mean, it was an open haven. It was a safe haven for everybody to be a part of. And so that was so foreign to me. But I'm starting to see it again. And that to me is reprehensible. And I'm not going to say that everything is wrong, because I do believe that, some laws are there to keep us safe. Keeps me from jumping off a bridge. But I do really believe that, we are losing that whole feeling of responsibility, that whole concept of thinking for ourselves
Yeah.
and allowing other people to go and influence to a higher place and to a higher cause.
Right. I remember when I was in high school, I was kind of a nerd. I was reading up on. I didn't really know about Wicca at the time, but I was still
Mhm.
really interested in herbalism and
Yeah.
magic and stuff like that. So I was reading a lot of books even back then. And I remembered the kids saying, "Oh, that's satanic, that's icky, that's this, that's that," So I do remember that as a kid.
I remember, again, I'm blessed because I've met so many cool people in my life. I really have. And the late Raymond Buckland, I met him on the front porch of a hotel in retail. And even though I knew the name, I didn't know what he looked like, and we had the greatest conversation. But I remember later on when I got to know him better, he told me about when he got outed, and we all get outed. I mean, I was outed when I was working, and he got outed as a witch, and kids would walk back and forth in front of his house and sing "Ding Dong, the witch is dead."
Man.
And and Ray had a wicked sense of humor. So Ray would put on a record. That's how many years ago it was. He'd put on a record of The Wizard of Oz and start singing it with them, Or people went and they burned his car. I thought when he lived in New Jersey, they burned his car. And this was in direct response to being different. This is a direct response to being, people being fearful. This is a direct response to people thinking, instead of what paganism and what witchcraft actually was, it became automatically demonic.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's hard. I have a hard time with it because I don't, I was brought up Roman Catholic and spiritualist, which people think is an oxymoron, but it actually is there's a lot of similarities between the two. But I think the big thing that comes to pass is the fact that I don't believe in angels, and I don't believe in the demonic. I believe in energies, I believe in spirit personalities, I believe in, energetic personalities. I do believe, how energy affects people. I believe in all that. I believe in the continuation of the soul. But I think the biggest problem that I have, and it was huge uh, back in the 80s and 90s, was the effect of the demons. And a lot of that started in 72 or 73 with The Exorcist. And it just kept going and it kept building and building. And
And the
I
almond.
believe,
Yep.
the Omen, Witchboard. I believe I believe a lot of this influenced a lot of what we saw in the early paranormal shows. And I think that people don't realize that. And I think that people automatically, because I believe that everything that we're working with now has a heavy Christian influence on it, because all of a sudden now it's demons. And let's face it, being a child of reality TV, having been on reality TV, I can tell you that production companies don't really care about demons, but they care about profits. So they're out there saying, let's pop this up a little bit. Come on, we got to pop this up. You know what? There's got to be a demon here someplace. So let's go find us a demon, Let's go find something that's so bad, so negative, and even if nothing happens, we'll make something happen, which happens more than what we want to go and admit.
Just recently I had a guy on the show that he was a demonologist, and he's a great guy. I love what he does. But But I asked him a question about, first I said, the whole idea of demons is a Christian Hebrew idea, right? So if somebody doesn't practice, or what if they're from Buddhism, or what if they practice something else?
Yeah.
What do you do when you go to their house or something? Do you just not go, or how do you help this person? He didn't really have a lot to say in response to that.
See, this is the problem, because all of a sudden now because the Christian influence is so overwhelming, and all of a sudden now the client no longer has a place that he can find he can find that solace, he can find help. And I mean, myself, when we were working, I've worked with exorcists, I've worked with a lot of different types of people. You have to have a Rolodex. Oh my God, I'm showing my age again. A Rolodex. I said Rolodex. Anyway, you got to have a list of people who are of different faiths, so that you can be able to go and help whoever it is. If you have somebody in there, one of the main questions I always ask people, what's your belief system? Well, what's your base belief system? Because people say, well, I don't really have one. Well, what were you brought up as? And that's how you build that rapport, and that's how you know which way to go. People don't get that. People automatically see what's on TV, and now they're automatically looking for something that, of their own spirituality, such as it, like in my case, would be a demon. I mean, I believe in lower energies, but it's like, I don't believe in the personification of it. And I don't like calling.
So I think Tim has disappeared. But I guess at the end of the day, the whole satanic panic thing is, are you back, Tim?
I'm back.
Here for a minute here.
See, we're talking about demons. This is what happens.
They just come through the phones and stuff. Whatever this is, the internet waves. I kind of want to talk a little bit about, a little more about some of the influence on pop culture that satanic panic has had over the years.
Well,
we had some great movies and stuff come out of it, though.
Oh, I think that. You know what? It's a whole genre, and I absolutely love the movies. I absolutely love them because, and also, let's think about it. The old black and whites, Frankenstein, Dracula. Don't you think that the church groups went out there and said, "Don't go and see this movie"? Again, The Exorcist came out. I remember Sister whoever standing in front of the class and saying, "Do not see The Exorcist."
Well, if you took in literature, that was one of the main required readings on the list, was Frankenstein.
Exactly. Mary Shelley. Let's look at you. You want to talk about a goth life? Talk about Mary Shelley's life. So I mean, but also I mean the music. You had the whole idea of, look at Ozzy. I loved Ozzy Osbourne right from the beginning. When I first heard him, he was just a madman. And he was somebody that rebelled against society. And don't you think that that's frightening to a conservative, ultra conservative group? You get somebody like him out there, and having your kids follow him, having your kids wearing his T-shirts, having your kids going to see his concerts.
When did that whole bat thing happen?
Oh, oh my God, I can't remember now. But I remember that I had worked. I had worked with Jack Osbourne, and I remember we were just laughing about it, and I remember him saying, "Yeah, Dad bit it, but he thought it was a rubber bat." He thought it was a rubber bat. He goes, he didn't think it was a real bat. But again,
it's still his faith, though.
Well, hey, listen, I lived through disco. I've done some crazy stuff. Listen, good thing they don't have cell phones back then. But, I mean, he was great. And what he preached or what he was singing at that time was scary to the masses. It really was scary. And you have, oh my God, let's talk about Marilyn Manson. He's the personification of evil in so many people's minds.
It's so weird. And I remember as a kid, they had him and they had the daughter of Anton LaVey do a panel discussion on one of the daily talk shows.
Yes.
And I think the audience was just so taken aback how well-spoken and intelligent that Marilyn Manson was.
Oh, yeah.
During that interview. You can actually see that on YouTube, too. If you go back and watch, I looked it up. I remember seeing it as a kid because it was like such a frightening, they made it into this frightening thing. Oh, we have the daughter of the Satanic Church and Marilyn Manson on, for an exclusive or something like that. And everybody was tuned in. And it was like, they would ask, they were trying to bait the questions even to these guys. And I just remember every response Marilyn Manson had, which is an intelligent, coherent response.
Which is not what
they expected.
The conservatives wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the big thing was with Anton LaVey. I remember it was huge that he went and he had all these Hollywood stars. And it almost became McCarthyism because now they were hunting demon, all these people that were part of the Satanic Church, and they were going to try to blacklist them back then, just like they did during the McCarthy era. I mean, that's what it started to come to. And again, you start seeing how life in general ebbs and flows. And
it's happening now too.
Well, it is. And again, the woke movement was direct correlation to so much that was going on. And not to say that it wasn't the right thing, but it pushed it into another direction. And that's why we have what's going on now. And we have this oppression. And it's funny because the freer we become, the more oppressed we become. There is no one way or the other. Somehow it always tries to balance out. Again, I work with pagan communities that feel oppression. They get oppressed. I work with but yet paranormal investigators, they get carte blanche. They got a gold star for what they're doing. Why is that? Because of the whole demon idea. The whole thing that we're doing it for the higher good. We're doing it for God and country rather than being, somebody who might be scary, might be going and making people see how. And I believe that unfortunately, I believe a lot of our artists today are direct mirrors of society. And that's something that back in during that panic, it was a direct mirror of so much that was going on in our society. But, again, people are always look for the easy way out. People wanted to believe in so much that was negative, so much that was wrong. And they look for scapegoats. And again, music and all this that we talked about before, they become scapegoats. And that's where we have to. And again, the most innocuous game out there, Dungeons and Dragons.
So funny.
In my collection, I have probably 20 games that came out around that era. And
there was a crime case centered around Dungeons and Dragons that kicked this whole thing off, didn't it?
Well, that and the daycare scandal.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two things that really kicked it off. And I believe that I'm trying to think. If I'm not mistaken, wasn't that even the murder was wrapped around role playing, not just Dungeons and Dragons, but I'm trying to remember something. It was something more about role playing, and then it's been a while. I got a guy that you can talk to about that. A guy by the name of oh God, now my brain just shut off. Anyway, I'll give you his name off air. He's a profiler. He was from Florida, and he talks in depth about this. And
I'll have to have him on my show and talk about it.
Yeah, I'll give you. I'll connect you. I'll connect you up. Offhand, Thomas Patrick is his name, and he can really go into such detail. But yeah, I mean, but again, people are looking for blames, and people who are doing it, like let's say that vampire cult killing that took place in Kentucky. Abused kid. The mother was an addict. Terrible upbringing. He embraced role playing. He ended up killing his girlfriend's parents, became the youngest person to sit on death row. Why? Why? Is it because he was influenced because of everything that was going on, because of Anne Rice's books, because oh my God, she was condemned. I remember when people burned her books.
I remember that too.
That was before her conversion to Christianity, and then she went back. And they believe afterwards. But I mean, I remember all that. And so this person who killed these parents, was it the demon? A demon make him do it? That's like the Ouija board cases. Ouija board says to somebody to go kill somebody, and they do. Whose fault is it? Is it the board? Is it society? Is it the person who is not taking responsibility? Somebody that's not really brought up right. Somebody may have a mental defect. Who's responsible? Who influences? 9 out of 10 times, it's not the source, but it's the media around the source that does it.
That would make a good argument, though, with satanic panickers who say that demons are influencing these kind of things, because don't they also preach in free will? Or is it predestination? I can't remember.
Demons, the best demons are if I'm not, I can't remember the correct stanza, but it says they all say the demonic is the great plays hide and seek, and the best and the biggest asset, the attribute, is that they're hidden. The demons are hidden. They act as if and I believe that's just a cop out. I believe that's just I believe that's just an excuse for saying, well, the demons are just waiting to pop out in everybody's lives. And again, I wrote that book C2D1 Haunting, where we feel it was a possession attempt, but was it demonic? I've had people come up to me and talk to me about it and say, well, it happened, this happened during the Satanic Panic. This happened, in the 80s. This happened. But it had nothing to do with demons. People go and they equate anything that's negative. Now, again, there are hauntings. I believe in hauntings, but they equate it with negativity. It's the same thing that was going on during the Satanic Panic. People are looking for that. People are looking for they think that if they can say it's demonic, it becomes such an easy way out. It becomes, oh, well, it's logical. And sometimes things are just not logical. Sometimes it could be a mess of things. It could be one thing. It could be 1,000 things. It's just not one thing. And that's the problem with it during that time period, because everybody was trying to go and find a common denominator for it, which was, a demon, the demonic, or Satan.
Well, Tim, we are out of time. It went by so fast. Just like that, it's over.
Every time we get a chance to talk, it goes by so fast. It really does. I have to say that you're one of my favorite people to talk to, because I swear to God, even though we're on 2 different coasts here, I think we read each other's minds, because I'll get a message from you and it's like, I was just thinking that.
Well, I mean, we do have connections to Lilydale. Maybe that's it. I don't know.
Could be.
I don't know. I really enjoy talking to you, and I do look up to you a lot, just so you know.
Well, before we end, I do have a book that I do recommend.
Okay.
And it's called The Satanic Panic.
I saw that online that you just showed.
Yeah, it's Paul Corp, and it's edited, and it's Kerala Janace, but basically it's the Satanic Panic, and it covers the media portion of the Satanic Panic.
Oh, wow.
It
Really?
covers all about the movies, and it covers about the social mores of the time and the rock and roll and all that.
Does it talk about the apples and the razors?
I haven't gotten that far yet, but I think it probably does. I have to say that I've
It's really
read
part of it.
this is I probably like the fourth book that I've actually sat down and read about the Satanic Panic, and I have to say that this is the one that makes the most sense because it covers everything outside of the religious aspect. So if you guys get a chance, that's a good book.
But what do you have going on before we get off?
Let's see. This weekend I will be in Erie, Pennsylvania for a metaphysical fair at the Ambassador Hotel, and then I'm trying to think. I'll be in Cleveland in September for the Cleveland Paracon, and then I got a bunch of stuff in October. I mean, I'm solid in October. I love it. Library talks, all local stuff. Because why, Ms. Thomas?
Why?
I don't want to travel anymore.
Really?
I don't like flying anymore, but I do love being able to do that. I'm also volunteering up at Concordia Cemetery, and I'm digging up tombstones, and we're out. As a matter of fact, I have a pet project where I am looking to find an artist who was a resident at Buffalo Psychiatric. He passed away, and he did some beautiful work, and he's buried in a grave that's unmarked. He was indigenous, and so I mean, he didn't have a home or anything. He was a ward of the county, and so I'm going to be out there, and I'm going to be looking, and hopefully I'm going to raise some money for a marker for him, and then of course raising money for. I'm doing a few things here and there to raise money for local food banks. So that's what I'm doing. You got to keep busy, and I'm working, and I'm finishing up a book. I'm finishing up stories, unusual and scary stories I tell my friends. So it's just like crazy stories I've done. So places I've been.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming on the air.
I love you, kid. See, take care and take care of that little fur kid.
Oh, yeah, she's so bad right now.
And thank you to everybody that listens in. I really appreciate you guys. And you know what? This one here is quality. I love her.
But thank you, Tim. You've been listening to The Gateway, broadcast from the bluffs of the Rockies where the strange slips through the cracks, live from United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM. Thank you to my guest, Tim Shaw. He is also the host of the Black Cat Lounge, so look for that. Thank you for listening to The Gateway Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow traveler of the strange and unexplained. Until next time.